Most people don't know what's holding them back, but you do because you listen to me, Sam, your self-care guru and journal junkie. Welcome to Journal Entries, your safe place where you can tune in weekly to get tips, tricks, and journal prompts to uncover your feelings, gain clarity, and make your move. Hello, welcome to this week's journal entry. There have been some studies on how self-sabotage is the reason for all stress. All stress stems from self-sabotage. When I heard this, I immediately became interested, as well as the fact that I have felt stuck from time to time. And I know that I definitely self-sabotage. Like every time I scroll my phone, even I like keep scrolling, and in my head I'm like, I'm self-sabotaging, get up, do something, but I keep swiping and I'm like, I'm self-sabotaging. So I know that it's a thing. And I'm just geeking out on it right now. So before I get into all that I want to share with you today, which is my specific saboteurs, some journal prompts on how you can relate to your saboteurs, and some more good stuff, I just want to know your interest level on self-sabotage. If you feel like you self-sabotage, if you're interested in this topic, if you feel stuck in life, if you are interested in this and others, then I will go way more into this and talk about more saboteurs and all of the interesting facts and information that I'm finding about it. But today I just wanted to talk more personally about it and share with you what I'm finding. Self-sabotage comes up for people in all different ways, but self-sabotage might feel like you're stuck and it feels frustrating, but you're also feeling this sense of comfort and safety and maybe even peace. Like you want to move your life forward and more out of life, but also things are good, things are okay right now. Or maybe self-sabotage for you is you just pick arguments with people for no real reason. Like you're finding something to complain about or to fight about. Or you might be giving all of you to your partner or to your kids, and you forget about who you are as a person. That's self-sabotage. Or when you maybe got let go from your job or fired and you are struggling to find a new job, that could be self-sabotage getting in the way. I started off taking the quiz that I actually mentioned in an episode 2 or 3 episodes ago called the Saboteur Assessment. So I will share that link in the show notes so that you can take it too. It's a lot of questions. I think it's 50 questions, but it says to not think too much into any of them. So I was just like answering as fast as I could and went through them all. And then you get your results. There are 10 saboteurs. One of them is called the judge, and this is the one that judges ourselves, we judge others, and we all have this one. And it's like the master one. It's like the top one that we all have. Then there are 9 others, but they show up differently for everybody. So the ones that are my top 3 might not be your top 3. My top 3, like by far, which if you've been listening to my podcast and or if you know me, you will know this is like so true. Mine is people pleasing, number 1. Number 2 is avoider. And number 3 is hyperachiever. I'll go through the other ones so that you can hear what they are and maybe you'll be able to relate to those ones. The others are restless, the stickler, victim, controller, hyper rational, or hyper vigilant. I'm going to go into the people pleaser, avoider, and hyperachiever just because that's what I am. For each of those, I'm going to be sharing with you what it is, the characteristics of them, and then the thoughts, the feelings, the impact that this self-sabotage has on us and on others, and then the original survival function. I heard an analogy where it actually made self-sabotage feel like a positive thing. It was the analogy of when you put your hand on a hot stove and immediately you feel the pain and you pull your hand right off of it, right? This analogy was talking about how pain is almost a good thing in that moment because we realized that our hand was in pain and we pulled it away from the hot stove. It was helpful in hopefully not burning our hand or not burning it too badly. Self-sabotage is when we feel the pain of something and keep our hand there. So understanding what our saboteurs are will help us identify when we feel it, when we hear it kick in our brains. And then what I've done is applied it to my past and my current life. How am I self-sabotaging? And from there, we can learn how to not only hear it, not only be able to relate to it, but hear it and then move through it quicker so that we're not sitting in that self-sabotage for very long and keeping our hand on that hot stove for very long. Again, if you're interested in this, especially if you feel like you're not the people pleaser, avoider, or hyperachiever, you're one of the other ones, let me know and I can do another episode where we dig more into yours. But first, let's dive into people pleaser. This type of person that experiences the saboteur of pleaser indirectly tries to gain acceptance and affection by helping, pleasing, rescuing, or flattering others. They lose sight of their own needs and become resentful as a result. I want to actually pull up one of my favorite Instagram accounts who talks a lot about people pleasing. The Instagram account is Haley Page McGee. She posted something today that says, often people pleasing is based on an unspoken transaction. I will go out of my way for you, and in return, you will make me feel loved, wanted, and needed. When others don't hold up their end of the bargain, we get resentful. The problem is, they never signed up for this covert contract in the first place. She had another good one too, that essentially was getting to the same point of when people pleasing comes out in us, it's this unwritten and unspoken desire that by us overextending ourselves, we expect them to overextend themselves for us too. And when they don't, because let's say maybe they have boundaries, we then feel resentful. So lots of times people pleasers end up feeling resentful when they're not met with the same behavior. But these are the characteristics of a people pleaser. They have a strong need to be liked by people and attempts to earn it by helping, pleasing, rescuing, or flattering them. They need frequent reassurance by others about their acceptance and affection. They can't express their own needs openly and directly, and they do so indirectly by having people feel obligated to reciprocate care. The thoughts that a pleaser might have. To be a good person, I should put the needs of others ahead of my own. It bothers me when people don't notice or care about what I have done for them. They can be selfish and ungrateful. I give away too much and don't think of myself enough. I can make anyone like me. If I don't rescue people, who will? The feelings that a pleaser might have. Expressing my own needs directly feels selfish. I'm worried that insisting on my own needs may drive others away. I feel resentful for being taken for granted, but have difficulty expressing it. This is the impact that pleasing has on yourself and others. It can jeopardize taking care of one's own needs, including emotionally, physically, or financially. It can lead to resentment and burnout. And others can develop dependence rather than learning to take care of themselves and feeling obligated, guilty, or manipulated. The original survival function. This is when that self-sabotage first came into our lives. It came in for a reason, for a purpose. It helped us. It just stuck around for a really long time, and we became used to it because it kept us safe. The pleaser's original survival function was this. The pleaser tries to earn attention and acceptance through helping others. This is an indirect attempt to have one's emotional needs met. It is fed by two original assumptions that are picked up in childhood. One, I must put others' needs ahead of my own. Two, I must give love and affection in order to get any back. I must earn it, and I am not simply worthy of it. There is so much here to unpack, especially if you can relate to this like I can. I'm going to quickly go over the avoider and hyperachiever and then get into the journal prompts where we're going to relate back to the things that I just mentioned to help you actually be able to apply this to your life, to relate to it, because we could easily just fix these things. But if we're just fixing them because a quiz told us that this is our top problem areas and our top self-sabotage areas, then it's not going to be as effective as understanding the root of it and where it came from and direct examples that we can remember where this has happened in our lives. This is the avoider. The avoider focuses on the positive and pleasant in an extreme way. They avoid difficult and unpleasant tasks and conflicts. Characteristics of an avoider. They avoid conflict and say yes to things that they don't actually want to do. They downplay the importance of real problems and try to deflect others, and they have difficulty saying no. They resist others through passive aggressive means rather than directly, and they lose self in comforting routines and habits, and they procrastinate on unpleasant tasks. Thoughts that the avoider has. This is just too unpleasant. Maybe if I let it go, it will take care of itself. If I deal with this now, I will hurt feelings, and I'd rather not. If I get into conflict with others, I might lose my connection with them. I have found balance and I don't want to mess with it. I'd rather give someone else their way than create a scene. Feelings that an avoider might feel is even keel all the time, anxiety about what has been avoided or procrastinated on, fear about hard-won peace of mind being interrupted. Like they've worked really hard on keeping this peace among all people and all situations in their life. So they have fear around that being interrupted with an argument or anything that could disrupt it. Another feeling is suppressed anger and resentment rather than expressed anger. The original survival function of an avoider. Avoider could arise from both happy and difficult childhoods. In happy childhoods, one might not have learned the resiliency of dealing with difficult emotions. And in a childhood of high conflict and tension, the avoider might come into play peacemaker and learn to not add any negativity or tension on top of the existing family tension. Next up and last up for today is the hyperachiever. This person is dependent on constant performance and achievement for self-respect and self-validation. They are highly focused on external success, leading to unsustainable workaholic tendencies and loss of touch with deeper emotional and relationship needs. Characteristics of a hyperachiever. They are typically competitive, image and status conscious, good at covering up insecurities and showing positive image, adapt personality to fit what would be most impressive to the other. They have a goal-oriented and workaholic streak, more into perfecting public image than introspection. They can be self-promoting and can keep people at a safe distance. The thoughts that a hyperachiever might have is, I must be best at what I do. If I can't be outstanding, I won't bother. They must be efficient and effective. Emotions get in the way of performance. Focus on thinking and action. I can be anything I want to be. You are worthy as long as you are successful and others think well of you. Feelings that a hyperachiever has. I don't like dwelling in feelings for too long. They distract from achieving my goals. Sometimes I feel empty and depressed inside, but don't linger there. I feel worthy mostly when I'm successful. The impact on self and others. Peace and happiness is fleeting and short-lived in brief celebrations and achievement. Self-acceptance is continuously conditioned on the next success rather than unconditional. They lose touch with deeper feelings, deeper self, and ability to connect deeply with others. Others might be pulled into the performance vortex of the hyperachiever and become similarly lopsided in their focus on external achievement. Here's the original survival function for the hyperachiever. For the hyperachiever, self-validation, self-acceptance, and self-love are all conditional, conditioned on continual performance. This is often the result of either conditional or altogether absent validation from parental figures. Even with very loving and approving parents, it is easy for children to get the sense that they are loved in return for achieving, obeying the rules, and having good manners rather than unconditionally. Other saboteurs that you might relate to, again, are restless. This is when you're constantly in search of something else that's greater and exciting in the next activity and always staying busy. Or the stickler, this is the perfectionist, perfectionism and that need for order and organization. Playing the victim, that's emotional and being temperamental as a way to gain attention and affection. The controller, this is the anxiety-based need to take charge and to be in control of situations and other people's actions. The hyper-rational, this is intense focus on the rational processing of everything, including relationships, which is not always rational. And hypervigilant, this is continuous, intense anxiety about all the dangers and all that could go wrong. All right, so here are my journal prompts for you that will help you relate to these again so that we can then move on from them. And that can be another episode, but I think it's going to be really enlightening just to become aware of the self-sabotage that you have and what is holding you back, what is keeping you stuck. This is the very first step. So identifying your saboteurs is the first step, and then using these prompts. The first is what sticks out at you. When you go through those characteristics, thoughts, feelings, impact on self and others, and the original survival function, when you read through that, does anything pop out as in a, oh no, that's definitely not me? Or, oh my gosh, that is something that I do every day, or I think about this every day, or maybe a specific example pops up where you definitely did that and it like blew up, or something happened where you have a very specific memory about that. When I was reading The People Pleaser, there was something underneath the impact and self and others, that others can develop dependence rather than learn to take care of themselves. And I believe that in my marriage, I definitely was an enabler. Probably in all of my relationships, I was an enabler instead of having them own up and take accountability and follow through. I always rescued. So that's the first prompt. What sticks out? And also, how can you relate to them in general? How can you relate to people pleasing or avoider or the stickler, the perfectionist? What is your relationship with them? The second prompt is, what is a thought, right? One of the specific thoughts underneath your saboteur that pops out at you, and when is a specific time that you thought that? Let's jump over to my avoider. When I was journaling on this, I have thought all of those thoughts, literally every single one. This is too unpleasant. If I just let it go, it'll take care of itself. It'll just figure itself out. Or if I deal with this, her feelings will get hurt, or his feelings will get hurt, and I don't want to hurt their feelings, so I'd rather not. There were times where I did bring up conversations, right? Where I wasn't the avoider. I wanted to have the conversation, or I did step out of my comfort zone. But when I was met with somebody who wasn't ready or willing to, have that conversation or whatever it might be, it was so easy for me to slip back into being the avoider. So if they were like, I don't want to talk about it, or that's not true, or you're crazy, I was like, okay, yeah, no, you're probably right. And I would just avoid it. So it was easy for me to slip back. So when I was journaling on it, that's more so what my memory was. It was the feelings of like, I tried, I know that I'm a avoider for sure, but like there were moments that I tried to step out and then I would slip back. And it almost felt like like, this is why. Like, it felt like reassuring to know that at least there's a reason that, like, it's my self-sabotage that was kicking in, and that's okay. And I'm gonna learn how to like work through it. So I really liked the way that my thought process came out with that journal prompt. And that's one thing I love about journaling in general is you never know where your mind is going to take you. So hopefully you have some revelations during this as well. My last prompt for you is jumping to the survival function. How does your survival function land with you? Just explore it. When I read the people pleaser one, I resonated with parts of it. And the other part, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, I don't resonate with that at all. The part where it said, I must give love and affection in order to get any back. I must earn it and I'm not simply worthy of it. I don't think that we need to resonate with every single word on this chart. Like the hyperachiever, I really don't feel like I resonate with a lot of what it said. But there were certain things, of course, that I was like, oh yeah, that definitely hits. But with when it comes to the original survival function, I find it really interesting because again, we adopted this particular one and it felt so strongly and still feels so strongly for us because it made us safe way back when. So that's where I'm like, I got so curious around when was that for me in my childhood? So jumping to the hyperachiever, again, I didn't really resonate with all of the characteristics and thoughts and feelings and lies and all the things, but going to that original survival function, my parents were very loving. I always say, like, we had a very good childhood. There was no tension or anything. It mentioned that for very loving parents, it's easy for children to get the sense that they are loved in return for achieving, obeying the rules, having good manners. And my family was like that. We had good manners. We had to obey the rules. I was referred to as the good girl for achieving, like getting good grades, for being good in sports, for all the things, which I feel like a lot of kids, hopefully, right? I feel like those are all good things, but I can see how that would play into the hyperachiever. Like if we were loved for that and celebrated for that, we can believe we need to keep doing that in order to keep feeling love and keep feeling celebration. And that's just something that we have to unlearn. So I think some of these things will land for you, some of them won't land for you. And it's not about trying to believe all of it and like make it make sense for you. Some of it will, some of it won't. But I would love for you to just see how you can relate to it. And if your test comes back and you don't think that it's the right one, then I would trust your intuition and pick the ones that you think do resonate more with you and where you're at in life. I almost think that this hyperachiever that was me like 5 years ago, but I've had so much growth since then that I don't relate to a lot of that right now. But again, I can see where a lot of that stems from. I do have traces of that. Before I started journaling, I had this feeling that if I allowed myself to go there, meaning allowed myself to think deeper than superficial, something was under there. And I didn't know what it was. But I remember I went to a personal growth conference and I was nervous. Like my heart, I think maybe it was anxiety looking back or a panic attack, but my heart was like palpitating and I was just like palms sweaty. And it was that was just like walking into the event. That wasn't even like everybody take out your pens and journal on, your deepest, darkest secret. But I just felt like there was something that I wasn't telling myself and honoring myself. And it was there for a while. Like I knew that there was something there, and I literally just would not let myself go there. And I was afraid that if I did turn inward, that I would cause conflict, that it might end my marriage, that it would disrupt that peace. And now, looking back, I know that it was self-sabotage that was keeping me from turning inward. And so if you're sitting here listening, afraid to look into your self-sabotage and afraid to turn inward, I get it because that was me for years. I wish that I would have done it sooner. My life would be very different. I'm grateful for all of my experiences and where I am now and all that I have now. But I wish that I would have turned inward and listened to that fear and asked it questions, asked it what it was that it was trying to tell me. Because circling back to what I was saying in the beginning, self-sabotage isn't a bad thing. It's here to like knock on our doors and say, "Hey, something's here. This is how I'm helping you acknowledge it." And then it's up to us to actually do the thing, to move through it. So this is me helping you understand what it is and all of your signs for you, your saboteurs, so that you know who's knocking at your door. And when you feel it, then I can help you work through it. But let's first identify, what is it? What are those feelings? We do go into this and much more inside my journaling community called Emotionally Empowered, and I am still running my summer sale. Usually, my journaling community, where you get weekday journal prompts, one weekly workshop, which is where we all show up and you guys tell me what's happening in your world, and I give you journal prompts to work through that. And then also any specific program that I'm doing, like I ran a special human design one back in June. You get access to all of the special programs that I have now and in the future for as long as you're a member. Usually it's $197 a month. Right now, you can get your first month for only $57. If you choose to stay a member, it's only $97 locked in, $100 off locked in for as long as you stay a member. And as of now, it's cancel anytime. So you could cancel after your first month or cancel later on. Soon, I'm not sure exactly when, but soon, I'm going to have it be a 3-month commitment. So if you want to test it out at the lower rate, then check it out. I'll have that link in the show notes, as well as the saboteur assessment. Again, I would love to hear if you are geeking out about this as well and what your top saboteurs are. I'm curious if they're the same as mine or totally different. Either way, reach out to me on Instagram at samantha.s.says or shoot me an email, hello@samantha-says.com, and I would love to hear from you. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's journal entry. I love connecting with my listeners, so make sure you screenshot this episode and tag me on Instagram at samantha.s.says so I know you're listening. And don't forget to grab your free training and journal prompts at www.samanthapenkoff.com/podcast.